Hi, my name is Nolan Myers, and I will be presenting a case study on the Washington football team and how their name change came to be. So first, we'll go over the overall timeline. So in 1933, the franchise acquired the name Redskins, which had changed from their former mascot, which was the Braves. And then about 40 years in the future, there was a petition by Native American activists to remove the phrase "scalp 'em" from the fight song as it was deemed offensive. Um, and then 20 years in the future, another petition is signed by Native American activists to revoke the team's trademark on some offensive branding and logos. And then a key point in 1999, Daniel Snyder, an infamous stubborn individual in the sporting world, acquires the franchise, and he remains the owner to this day. And then again in 2006, we see another petition is formed to remove the organization's trademarks and legal protections of said trademarks. And then in 2020, the big change comes down, and the Washington franchise changes their name officially to the Washington football team. So the first study in these cases is the legality of petitions. So obviously in 1972, we see the first petition pressuring the franchise to change the fight song and remove the offensive phrasing. This petition did in fact work, and the team did remove offensive phrases from their fight song. However, in 1992, the petitions did not succeed in pressuring the team into changing the mascot and logo, which was deemed offensive by a collection of Native American civil rights leaders. And when the legality of petitions comes into play, the law equates petitioning with the freedom of speech and the freedom of assembly, which is protected by the First Amendment. So just as you can speak and post online any criticisms or any statements about anyone, as long as they are not defamation and things of that nature, you can also sign a petition. So it's just a little bit more formal way of protest or free speech, where a gathering of people will sign one statement that incorporates the thoughts of the entire group. So with this petition brought the case of Harjo versus Pro Football Incorporated, where, like I said, in 1992, the petition went to the Trademark Trial and Appeal Board and sought the removal of the trademarks that the team owned for their brand logo and mascot. The Native American group claimed that the team mascot and name was disparaging and offensive. And then the defense, Pro Football Incorporated, used latches or laches and claimed that too much time had passed between the petition signatures to the presentation of the claim to the TTAB, the Trademark Trial and Appeal Board. And this, in my opinion, is kind of a sense of going through the back door legally and finding a way to extend rather than proving innocence or something of that nature. It was kind of a way to get out on a legality. So Pro Football Incorporated successfully maintained the right to use the mascot and logo and the name. However, the complainants, represented by Harjo, would appeal this decision. So another important ruling is the slants case. The slants were a band with a name that was deemed offensive by some, especially those in the Asian American community. And through this, their case actually reached all the way up to the Supreme Court of the United States, where the Supreme Court justices ruled that band names and other organizational titles were protected under the First Amendment right of free speech. And this is a very important case to the Washington football team because had the ruling been different, it may have been a catalyst in changing their mascot sooner. Obviously, when studying law, we understand the concept of precedence. So had the precedence been set that offensive titles or slurs within an organization's name, had they been removed, then the Washington football team would have changed much sooner. But following this case, Daniel Snyder, the owner, again states that the team will never change and will remain true to their mascot. So obviously we know the name changed. What happened in 2020 that caused that change? In 2020, the Washington organization was presented with several letters from key sponsors such as FedEx, Pepsi, and Nike, announcing that they would cease operations with the team unless the team mascot and logos were changed. FedEx is the sponsor of the stadium, has their name everywhere, and then Nike, obviously one of the most popular apparel companies in the world, refused to sell merchandise that featured any of the team names or logos. And money talks. Following the threats from the companies that were collectively worth over $620 billion, the organization decided to change their name to the Washington football team. So uniforms, stadium, and other merchandise would be altered for the 2020-2021 season to appease the sponsors and other critics outside of the organization. Electronic Arts followed suit, and they changed the name within the video game franchise Madden, and edited everything to make it realistic to the times as Washington was undergoing a rebranding. So why was this decision so hard to reach? One, Dan Snyder, the owner, appeared to be extremely stubborn and set in his ways, and he remained consistent in his message that the organization's name was not offensive and was actually respectful homage to the Native American community. But additionally, there was going to be a large fee incorporated with a total rebranding of all things related to the Washington football organization. So when you think about the cost of changing uniforms, helmets, stadium logos, trademarks, apparel, merchandise, things of that nature, it's going to be quite a large fee. And this is probably the number one factor in why the organization did not want to change their name and go through that painful experience of ripping off the Band-Aid and paying a large sum of money to change everything. However, the financial pressure from the sponsors eventually made the organization change. And unfortunately, money talks, like I said, and the financial pressure appeared to be much greater than the social pressure they faced from civil rights activists and other critics nationally. So these cases that we've talked about are great in showing the extent of legal proceedings and the legality in the scope of sport and how things can go from complaints via petitions and things of that nature to complaints that go to complaining about trademarks and trying to have those things removed, as well as contractual obligations and breach of contract with companies such as FedEx and threatening to remove funding and things of that nature. Additionally, these cases reiterate that money is the driving force in everything, even professional sport. For the entire semester, we've discussed, money as the key aspect in pretty much every decision in professional sport. It is a business at the end of the day, and we saw that in this case, that money was the driving force to change the name of the Washington football team. Thankfully, the sponsors for the Washington football team held them accountable and made them change and kind of removed that black eye on the history of the NFL. Probably a little bit too late, but better late than never. It's a good thing that it happened. And once again, money talks. So thank you very much. I appreciate your time.